This video was sponsored by SimpliSafe. Hey, I'm Matt. Today I will show you 5 woodworking tools you didn't know you needed until now. And if you're interested in any of the products you see today, I'll put those links in the description so you can go check them out before making your buying decision. Let's go. Number 1 on the list is the Kreg multi-purpose project blocks. If you've seen the channel before, you know I've used these Rockler bench cookies a bunch, and they're work supports, and these are very similar, but with an added bonus. Let me show you. The great thing about these is they come in a 4-pack. And if you've ever worked on anything, you know you need 4 to support it properly. And the great thing about these are very similar to a bench cookie. They have this rubber grip built into the top and the bottom, so you can actually turn them either way. It doesn't really matter. And when you put your stock on there, if you're sanding that or if you're laying out something, whatever you need to do with that, it's going to be secure and sturdy and not slip. If you've seen me use these Rockler bench cookies before, you've probably seen me use these finish cones that snap on top. That's just another added buy for these. They work well, but that's just something else to keep up with. What's great about the Kreg brand, this has an integrated paint cone. All you have to do is press this little push button on the side and it raises right up. Now you got a built-in paint cone that you can use to support your stock, especially when you're using clear finishes. Let me pop them all up, I'll show you. If I put a clear finish on the one side of this and I didn't want to damage that finish, that's what these little points are for. You just set it down on there and now I can put finish on the top while also protecting the finish on the bottom. One thing I really like about the Kreg blocks with the paint tip is that's rubber on top or some type of rubber plastic, something that's similar to the grippy material. The problem with these is they're plastic, they're hard plastic, so when you actually put your workpiece on there, if you press down, it can actually put a detent or some type of little divot into your workpiece, especially on softwoods. This shouldn't do that because it has a softer material. It doesn't give, in other words, it's not squishy, but it's just less likely to mar, scuff, or scratch. Number 2 on the list, Carter Products Fast System. It's a fence alignment system tool. These things are great for lining your fence to your bandsaw blade, or you can use them at the table saw or the router table. Let me show you. I'll show you how to use these on the table saw and the router, but I want to show you the bandsaw first because that's what they're specifically made for. You can see on the back here, they have a cutout or a dado in there. And they also have magnets that are inset. And the magnet is so that it sticks to the blade. The dado or the cutout is so that the teeth have a place to basically go into, because you know a bandsaw's teeth basically exaggerated looks like that. So if we didn't have that cutout, then the teeth would throw off the square. Now if you have a bandsaw, you know this thing gets knocked out of square quite often. And if it is out of square, that's one great thing about these blocks. When you move that fence over, you're gonna see it pretty obvious right there that we have some adjusting to do. And that's what's great about those blocks. Now I can just basically use the adjustment on the bandsaw fence to get everything nice and square again. Just a little more. And then I can tighten that down. Look at there, we've got a very fast setup, extremely fast. I was able to square that blade up with that fence at a 1/2 inch. Now I can cut. We've got 1/2, 3/8, 1/4, 3/16, and a 1/8 inch block. Of course, if you wanted to stack a 1/2 and say a 1/4, we're gonna get a 3/4 inch block that we'll be able to set 3/4 of an inch. Because these have that magnet on the back, you can see I can easily store them on the bandsaw either up top or more likely down here on the bottom just for vibrations purposes. They'll stay there. They're not gonna come off of there. So it's just a great place to store them, and they'll always be handy right here at the bandsaw. Let's see what else they can do. If you've watched this series of videos, you know I am a sucker for setup blocks. I love them because they make your life so much easier and faster. You can use these on the table saw. This is the 1/2 inch. You're just gonna move it over next to the blade. Lower your blade, and then just by sight and feel, you can set these up and get that perfect 1/2 inch height to cut those dados, those grooves, whatever you need to do. And like we did on the bandsaw, you can actually set these on top of each other and they will snap together because those magnets are pulling them together. And just like at the table saw, we can use them at the router table or on a fixed base router, is the same way. But you're just gonna lower it down and go by sight and feel, and then now we can cut a 1/2 inch dado using that bit there. So multiple purposes. SimpliSafe is a security system that experts trust. In fact, US News named SimpliSafe the best home security system of 2022. I wanted a security system that I was able to install and it would be easy to do, and this was really easy to do. To set it up, you just plug in the base station and then plug in the indoor camera. Everything else is wireless, and the app actually walks you through step by step how to install each one of these. It's very easy. With our system, we got a keypad right by the front door that allows us to arm and disarm the system as we come and go. We also got the indoor camera that's going to allow us to keep an eye on our house while we're away, and that gives us a lot of peace of mind, especially because we have small dogs in the house and we want to keep an eye on them to make sure they don't get into trouble or they don't hurt themselves or tear something up. I also like that I have a driveway camera now that I can actually view and see what's going on out there. It actually has motion on it, so it'll detect or alert me when there's motion. I like that because we've had break-ins recently in our area in vehicles, so that's gonna give me a little peace of mind there. We also installed motion detectors in the house. I put one in the garage over there in the corner. That way it alerts me when there's motion when I don't want there to be. There's also a glass break sensor that I installed. Again, super easy to install, super easy to set up. SimpliSafe has an excellent app that lets you view your cameras or check in on any activity that's happened while you're away. As my viewer, you can save 20% on your SimpliSafe security system when you sign up for an interactive monitoring plan, and you'll get your first month free. Just visit simplisafe.com/731woodworks to learn more. Number 3 on the list, stick around for 4 and 5 because you're gonna love those. This is probably my favorite new tool in the shop. I say that every time I get a new tool, but it is. I love Woodpeckers tools, and I'm a huge fan of those. I highly recommend at least the 1282 SS out of these two that I'll show you because it's the bigger of the two, but it's super handy to have a smaller square. So if it's in your budget, I would recommend just getting both. These squares have some very unique features that I've never seen on any other square, and that's one thing I love about Woodpeckers is their attention to detail and their features that are actually useful. I've had this carpenter square for a very long time, and up until this point, this has been the square of choice to make sure things were square. And what I found was, this ain't square. It's gonna be really hard to see on camera, I think, but I'll show you a little closer up view. If you see that gap right there, this is perfectly pushed up against the workbench. This piece is perfectly pushed down against this square, and I've got a gap right there, and it's touching up here. That means it's out of square. Something is. This one is not, this one is. Let me show you. Take your square, put it on a flat surface like this, and then make a mark. You got a mark, and we're gonna flip that over. We're gonna come to the exact same spot right there. We're gonna make another mark. You can see that line is straight. When we do the framing square, we're gonna put it just beside it. I can already see it out of square there. There's 2 lines there, and they both start out at the same spot. Woodpeckers line, framing square line, you can see that there is an obvious out of square issue with that square. In woodworking, that is a real problem. It can cause some pretty major issues if you're building boxes, furniture, really anything in woodworking. It needs to be square, and that's one thing I love about Woodpeckers is they're guaranteed to be square, and everything I've ever got from them has been precise. This also has a lot of other features I want to show you real quick. These squares are essentially the same. We just got a big brother and a little brother. The blade's going to be thinner obviously than that, but for the most part the features are exactly the same. It has the end scale up to 1.25 inches. This is just a smaller version of that. This blade is stainless steel. It's actually one piece, although it doesn't look like it. It actually is one piece in there, and then these 2 pieces of red anodized aluminum clamp over the top of it, and the SS stands for stainless steel. Why that one piece matters is because it's cut out with a CNC. That means it's going to be square every time on every square they make. A few of the features that I absolutely love about these squares, and I've just found them a joy to use. I like that it has that cutout right there that when I set this on the workpiece, I can actually draw the line from edge to edge, and it covers the whole piece. I also like that it has these marks that are indented that I can set my pencil in and make a scribe at any one of these marks all the way up to probably 11.5 inches. And by far my favorite feature of this square is the fact that this blade is sticking out further than this anodized aluminum, and it will sit on top of your workpiece, keeping this flat. Last but certainly not least, and one of the favorite, and the reason I keep going back to Woodpeckers tools is their accuracy. We've got the 642, the 1282, the edge rule, the pocket rule, and the indexable square. And when you line them all up, every one of their measuring marks lines up exactly the same all the way across the line of tools. They're just so accurate, absolutely worth what they pay for them. They could probably charge more and I would buy that too. They're just that good. If you're still using the miter gauge that come with your saw, this is a saw stop. It's a really expensive saw and they give a crap miter gauge, just to put it bluntly. This thing is hot garbage and they should be ashamed for even putting it in the box. That's how I feel about this. However, for a very minimal investment, probably less than $100, give or take, the Incra Miter V27 is a fantastic upgrade to a crap miter gauge. And what's great about this is it'll fit almost any T-track slot on most any table saw, and it has an adjustable miter gauge or miter bar with this little included wrench. And the way that works is when you screw down these tightening screws, it expands that plastic and it makes it to where it has zero play in it left or right. It will not move, but it will still slide smoothly in your slot. You can see this miter gauge, it has a little bit of play. You really can't see it, but you can hear it. It just has too much play. There's really no way to adjust it other than that screw down here, and that's only on that end. Also, this thing has almost a 1/16 of play, fully locked down. It'll move left or right, which means out of square, locked in on 0. It's no good. You can't use it for any accurate uses. For $75-ish, sometimes less, a very inexpensive upgrade for a miter gauge for your saw. This thing is fantastic. And you can go from 60 degrees to 60 degrees either way. It's very simple to actually operate that. Loosen this thumb screw, remove this detent lock, and then just turn your miter gauge and then push that back in. And what you'll see is when you push this back in, even if you're, say, slightly off, when you get it, I'll try to get it close. When you get it close and you push that back in, it locks it in. It basically, because that's a needle point, it locks it in, then you can just tighten that screw down and you've got a 60-degree miter that you're able to make at the table saw. Easily move it back to 0, lock it back in place, and then tighten that down. Everything's tight. That's going to be a nice, perfect square cut to your blade. As square as a square can be square. Just a perfectly square cut. That's just dead on 45 degrees. I haven't touched it. I literally took it out of the box and put that knob on it. That's it. It also works on your miter saw or your bandsaw, just like it does on the table saw. It goes into that track and operates exactly the same way. It's just a great way to add a miter gauge to your bandsaw if you don't have one. You can also attach a false fence or a temporary fence on here if you needed longer cross cuts. You would just attach that through these slotted holes here. And the reason you see these bolts on there is to actually adjust square this way. So you could just unloosen these and tighten and loosen as you needed until your fence was perfectly square with your table saw top. I mean, it's just a beautiful tool. I mean, it's so accurate. Has this nice skid resistant bottom so it doesn't scuff up your table. Just all around awesome. Last but certainly not least, my favorite PushBlock that I've bought to date. Not to be confused with the Gripper Ripper. I like this one and I showed it on a video not too long ago for making thin cuts and different things on the table saw. This is a PushBlock that has a very unique feature that I absolutely love and I'm using it all the time now, especially on the jointer, sometimes on the router table and the table saw, but mostly I use it on the jointer. If you saw the video where I recommended the Bench Dog PushBlocks, I still love these. I still use these all the time. I like the surface area. I like the big grip. However, this one has these tabs that come down and they are so useful you would not believe it. If you use the jointer a lot, you know when you're pushing the stock through with regular PushBlocks like this, they work most of the time, but there are times when you get down on this end and you start losing a little bit of grip. Because these are automatic too, they just automatically fall in and up so you can set it on the top and use it like a regular PushBlock. But if you push it to the back, this actually catches. It'll catch the edge of that board, and when you're pushing it through, it basically gives you another point of contact to help you push through the joint or the cut. Absolutely awesome, and these are by far the most useful push blocks I've got. If for whatever reason you don't want these automatically coming down, all you have to do is just put a little bit of pressure on them and they'll actually snap back up in place and they'll stay up in the up position and they won't be in your way. Actually, they've never gotten in my way being automatic. So as you can see, I just got this other one in because I love this thing so much. I went ahead and ordered another one for this specific purpose on the bandsaw. So the reason I specifically wanted 2 of these was so if I could resaw on the bandsaw. You don't always use the fence when you're cutting. You can actually just follow this line I have on there. That's what I'm gonna do now, but this will allow me, the unique feature of that flat piece that's on one side allows these to stand up on their own. And of course, these hooks back here will keep my fingers from even getting close to the blade at any point. So let's do it. These add like extra safety to that bandsaw because I am very nervous about my hand or fingers getting close to that very sharp and very dangerous blade. I don't want any nips or tucks or anything like that with that blade, and this will keep my hands away from that for that specific purpose. That is well worth the price of these. By far my favorite push block to date. If you like this video, you'll love these 5 tools under $30. Go check those out. They're absolutely awesome and you need them. Go click that box, get you the big old virtual fist bump. Also, another one of my favorite 5 tools videos right there. Thank you for watching. Hey, I'll put one here too, just in case you don't like those too. You never know.